Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm William Chen.
And I'm Sarah Watt.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective, with some connection. It could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. However, being that it is December, our December episode, it is now the fourth time that we've done this.
Oh my gosh.
Our best of the year. So we did, in 2016, our biggest film, our most favourite film as a collective was Zootopia. In 2017, we were divided between Sacred Deer, what's it called?
Killing of a Sacred Deer.
I was thinking Burial of a Sacred Deer.
Yep.
Killing of a Sacred Deer and War for the Planet of the Apes.
Oh my gosh.
And then in 2000...
Two equally relevant movies.
in 2018, it was, do you remember?
Mission Impossible.
Fallout!
It was Mission Impossible Fallout. And we will find out at the end of this episode what the 2019 Cinema in Context lowest common denominator film of the year will be. That's our plan, and we will return to our usual program in January of 2020. Let's jump into our top films. And the way that we are going to be structuring this is the same as last year. We felt that worked quite well. We're going to go around the table one by one and share our biggest surprise of the year, our biggest disappointment of the year, our most anticipated film to come out in the rest of the year. We're actually recording this in November, so we've got a month and a bit to go before the year's over. So there's films that are yet to come out. A wild card, something that's perhaps out of the ordinary of what people might expect. Our runners-up, we're going to have 3 runners-up each of our film of the year. And then our film of the year. So 6 categories that we're going to get through. And please be warned, there will be some spoilers. I think we'll attempt to keep it relatively spoiler-free for our films because we are going to be covering a lot. But, we'll see what happens. So just be warned, there might be some slight, maybe thematic spoilers. And before we jump into it, do either of you want to contribute anything before we get started?
Only to say that a lot of people at the moment, particularly on Facebook, are doing their top films of the 2010s. And so we've decided not to just go for a straightforward sort of top 10 or a top 100 or anything like that. And I like the fact that our categories allow us to go places into the territory of films that maybe were a disappointment or let us down.
And I am really looking forward to what you guys have because I think this year in film has been kind of rough. But without the big kind of unifying factors like Mission Impossible last year, I think it's going to be an interesting talk.
And I also think we've had a bit of a disjointed year. I mean, it's been a wonderful year, but Sarah was not with us for, I think, half of the year. And we had some wonderful guests come in. We sort of threw around different genres. We introduced TV for the first time, despite me resisting it for very, very long. And I think it's going to be interesting to maybe touch on some films that we haven't really had a chance to talk about, whereas we might have talked about sort of those films in previous years. Okay, let's jump in. Our biggest surprise, I'm going to start with you, William. Do you want to share with us your biggest surprise of 2019?
Absolutely, Jeremy. So this links to my biggest disappointment of last year, which was the movie Hereditary. Director Ari Aster, I thought that was a overhyped piece of tosh, especially given the third act turn, where it turned something that was beautiful and cryptic and really, really emotionally involving into something that was not. Lo and behold, Ari Aster came out with a new movie this year called Midsommar. And I don't know what it is. Or I kind of know what it is. But I love this movie. It is so much better than I thought it would be. It is a very long movie, but I know for me, it never really dragged. Like, it felt like I was along for the ride. And to very briefly summarize what this movie is about, a group of young, dumb Americans end up as...
Not all of them.
Okay. Mostly dumb grad students, which I love because they're academics, so yes.
They should know better.
They visit a very remote Swedish town, which is celebrating its Midsommar festival, the biggest version of this festival in 90 years. And stuff, as they say, does go down. I found this to be very atmospheric, creepy, horrible in a really funny way, because it's a really funny movie. And almost entirely intentionally so. Like, they know what they're doing. And then, of course, the ending is really satisfying in a way that I thought Hereditary was just not. So that is my big surprise of the year.
I fully agree, William. I mean, it's actually my runner-up for Film of the Year. I'm going to jump in and spoil that right now. But Midsommar was one of the strongest movies I saw this year. And I really enjoyed, and again, I'm going to have to say this cryptically without giving away too much, I really enjoyed the focus of the film being about, I guess, what it was emotionally about for the main character. I'll say that. And that even though it is set in this cult, it's about something very relatable and something that is not, I don't think we've seen that story very often, at least not dealt with in the way that it was. And absolutely, it ends in the most satisfying way. It gives you what you want, and I didn't even know I wanted what it was going to give me. So, yeah.
I've not seen it, and I felt a little bit scared of seeing it because I'm not massively into most horror films. But I honestly, you're making me come round to this idea that I could probably handle it. So I'm thinking I'm going to go.
I mean, the most ridiculous thing in the film is there's a scene where one of the characters goes into a cubicle in an airplane, and it's huge. No airplane bathroom's that big.
And it fits an entire film camera as well.
Yeah.
It's like they must have built this thing.
and there's heaps of leg room on the plane. No. All right, well, I'm going to hand it now over to Sarah. What is your biggest surprise of 2019?
My biggest surprise. So, just an opportunity for a little bit of name dropping. Earlier in the year, I was in Italy, and I was in Bologna for the Il Cinema Ritrovato Festival. So my biggest surprise is not actually a film that has come out in recent decades at all. It's from 1928, and it's called The Cameraman. And it's a black and white, Buster Keaton, slapstick comedy film. And I guess the reason it was the biggest surprise for me to have enjoyed it as much as I did is, as much as I fancy myself as a bit of a cinephile, I'm a little bit of a Philistine, and I would rather rewatch The Bourne Ultimatum than watch a film noir that I haven't seen before, because I know I'm going to have a good time in Waterloo Station with Paddy Considine, and I'm not always sure about these old films. But Buster Keaton, I developed a massive crush on him for about a week thereafter, read everything I could find about him, and look, I mean, I know it's a classic. I know that it plays in film festivals with a live audience and all that. I had the privilege of seeing it in the big open square in Bologna. I'm not even joking, 30-degree heat at night time, because it had been up to 38 and 40 during the day. And it was just the most wonderful cinematic experience. And it was a real revelation for me to know that I can handle a good old 1928 black and white silent film with all of the slapstick that I thought that I had no truck for. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time.
Wonderful. Well, look, I mean, my biggest surprise of the film, beyond my film of the year, which I will not reveal quite just yet, but my biggest surprise was a very recent film when it was Dr. Sleep. Because I didn't expect it to be good.
No.
And I know that we've had some discussion on our Facebook chat about it, and particularly Sarah, your husband Doug, has very different views on the film. But for me, as somebody who's both a fan of Stephen King and a fan of the Kubrick film, it's the scariest film I ever saw. I stayed up all night after watching The Shining as a 19-year-old, petrified of going to sleep, and had to watch films all night. And knowing that Stephen King can't stand the Kubrick film because he feels like it didn't capture the essence of his novel, and this film kind of feeling like somewhere halfway between these two worlds, I was really impressed. And I thought the acting was superb. I thought the storyline was a wonderful take on the Shining world without having to recreate all the beats. It's not set in a haunted location, whether that's a hotel or something that's more confined.
But was it credibly attached to The Shining?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they recreate shots. They recast, Shelley Duvall and the child, and they even recast Jack Nicholson with people that look like them, so they can recreate key shots so they can then use them for other scenes in the film.
And Ewan McGregor plays little Danny grown up.
Yeah,
right.
Who of course is called Doc.
Right.
And of course he's the titular Dr. Sleep.
Right.
And there's some really lovely scenes in the film, and this is a spoiler, but he Not a spoiler in terms of the major plot, but in terms of his character. You know, he's called Dr. Sleep because he works as an orderly in a hospice. And he's the one that brings peace to the elderly people who know they're going to die through a certain series of events. And he's the one that's able to calm them. And it's really lovely and equally horrific. And I thought the filmmakers did a wonderful job at creating a film that connected to its heritages, while equally not trying to be something. It wasn't trying to recreate The Shining.
Yeah, right.
And I think if it had tried to do that, I would have been unimpressed.
Yes.
Right. Biggest disappointment. I think we'll go back in a reverse direction. So, Sarah, do you want to share with us your biggest disappointment of this year?
Ladies and gentlemen, my biggest disappointment of the year is that my one of my three favourite directors of all time, who's probably slipping off that pedestal, is dear old QT, Mr. Quentin Tarantino. And I have to say, my biggest disappointment was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I didn't hate it at all, and it's really unfortunate. I think what happened was I saw it, was not enamoured of it, and strangely, I saw it at Cannes, as you know, and strangely, I reckon half the people at Cannes weren't enamoured of it either, but half were absolutely ecstatic, and then the world became ecstatic about it. And I think I started to object so much to what I felt was people drinking the Kool-Aid that it's really made it an even more tarnished experience for me, if you know what I mean. And it's not me trying to be different. It's me going, no, but wait, hold on. What about this? Wait, how dare you? This is, guys, you know, like that. So, look, and we've kind of touched on this. My disappointment about it is that it was overlong in a way that doesn't work, and that it was... We've just talked in our previous podcast about his acuity with wonderful long dialogue scenes and all this, and I just felt the pacing in Once Upon a Time was all over the show. The cut that I saw was almost unedited in a way. There were very, very long scenes that started brilliantly and then lost their puff. And I know the recut was ever so slightly better.
Because it's worth saying that you saw a different version of the film at Cannes because he went and recut it for the public release.
And we thought he was going to cut out half an hour and he was going to make it a bit tighter, and instead he added in a whole lot more Margot Robbie. Not a whole lot more, actually, but a bit more Margot Robbie and some Timothy Olyphant and the Great Escape scene. Was it Great Escape?
Yeah.
And that, which wasn't in the original. So, you know, it's a real privilege to have been able to see both. And I don't know, though, it just didn't work for me. And I remember at the time going, this is my 9th favourite Quentin Tarantino film, which is a real bum because I also carry a sadness about it because I actually wanted to like it and I want to like it. But there's too much that wasn't right about it. And it's made me quite critical of him as a filmmaker now, the way he is now. So, yeah, we'll see what else he comes up with. And maybe he will redeem himself.
For maybe his final film.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a chat about this on the internet, and I really thought that this was a movie of missed opportunity. I mean, there's clear love on screen from the director about Hollywood and the 60s and movies and all the stuff that, you know, Tarantino has shown that he holds so dearly.
And his commitment can't be, I can't fault. Absolutely,
The world building of this movie, especially the recreation of 60s era Hollywood, you know, Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood in general, using not CGI, but recreating old facades and making it feel so lived in and real it's an incredible feat.
Yes,
just
it is.
Incredible. And yet the movie that's draped on top of this is just so languid and wishy-washy, and there are moments I felt of brilliance. And it peaks really well. It's just there's so much of that faff that it's just very, very lacking in energy.
William, what's your biggest disappointment?
Oh, okay. My biggest disappointment is also a horror film. Also linked to a film that I think we all really liked in previous years, and that is Jordan Peele's Us.
Oh yeah, that was a disappointment for me too.
Oh right.
Yeah, go for it.
Alrighty. Just maybe because Get Out was such a direct and passionate and, you know, fresh voice. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see what this guy comes up with next. And Us is a sophomore effort that is just, it's really muddled. It's too long. I thought it was edited really poorly, and it shocked me to read reviews of people who said how brilliantly it was edited. There's a ballet scene near the end of the movie that I was laughing at, and then I read reviews saying, oh my gosh, this was the best scene of the year. Really? This? There's some really cool images and really cool ideas in this movie. Basically, as shown in the trailer, it's about a family, just a middle-class American family, that suddenly and terrifyingly gets stalked by their doppelgangers. You don't know where they come from, but there's evil versions of themselves who identify as us. Starts off brilliantly.
And as a premise, that's great, right?
And it's very...
And petrifying.
It's very well acted. It's very, very creepy and atmospheric. And then with the reveals, I think the worst kind of horror movie is the kind that treats its audience like dummies. And the reveal wasn't... Well, I thought it was pretty silly. And to take it seriously even after the reveal and to go where it goes, it just didn't really feel good watching it. And then, the ending happens, and that was that.
I quite enjoyed the film, but I did watch it on a plane. And as we know, I don't know, we might have talked about this before, with the limited oxygen, extra oxygen.
Oxygen in the atmosphere.
I'm a lot more forgiving on a plane.
Yeah.
But I mean, I everything you're saying, I don't disagree with. I thought the opening shot was pretty impressive with the bananas. Oh gosh, is that time of night? The bunny rabbits. And I thought Lupita Nyong'o carried that movie in a pretty impressive way.
There's lots that's great about
her
it.
best performance, hands down.
Yeah.
Well, she never really gets to do much. I feel like she's one of those actors that hasn't really had a chance to come into her prime. Like, she's pretty much done 12 Years a Slave, a film I loathe, and she does a CGI character in Star Wars.
Awakens.
Yeah.
Oh, and Black Panther's the love interest.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
This is true.
But Elizabeth Moss is in Us, isn't she?
Yeah.
So the White
She's
family
good.
in it and all that whole side of the scenes, like, very amusing, very shocking, very cool bits. But yeah, I think overall I would agree with you. It didn't quite work, and that was a disappointment. And again, it's as you say, the sophomore effort. It's that the danger of bringing out something that's absolutely extraordinary and then having to match up to that every time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was super ambitious, but also super messy.
Yeah.
Well, my biggest disappointment of the year is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
Really?
I agree with you, Sarah. And I think for all of the same reasons that we've already discussed. I mean, I did go back and watch it and really enjoyed it the second time. But it doesn't need to be that long. And I think the ranch sequence is incredible. I think the nostalgia you talked about, William, absolutely just phenomenal. I think the ending is great. I think all the beats are great. And there's some brilliant moments. But my gosh, it's a long film. And I remember sitting there watching it the first time thinking, I don't know what I'm supposed to be thinking or feeling or where this is going. I really... I think that we talked in our last episode about the lack of Sally Menke. Maybe we're oversimplifying that situation. I don't know. Maybe, Tarantino talks a lot about aging directors and how they sort of lose their way a bit. And I do feel like he's becoming indulgent, and it's similar to Peter Jackson, it's similar to George Lucas, it's similar to Francis Ford Coppola, it's similar to a lot of these directors that they lose some of their no men or women, and they kind of have a lot of yes people around, and they have the privilege of being able to do what they like. Maybe.
But I might have mentioned before that Sally Menke had an editorial assistant, that's not what they're called, assistant editor, who took up the reins when she passed away. I always want to call him Fred Raskin, and that might be wrong, but whatever. There was an interview with him where he said that the way it works is Quentin comes in each night and watches the dailies, and anything that he laughs at stays in the film.
Which is not a good judgment.
No, it isn't. I mean, I get it. I think some of my jokes are hilarious and I'll replay them to myself. But you've still got to have a degree of context for an audience as to whether that's a bit of perspective. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's why Zoe Bell's in the movie.
That's why.
I do feel like it's similar to, say, Interstellar, which is it's like a brilliant film in an overstuffed film.
Yes, it
it's
is.
like peel that back and you would have
Yeah.
had a perfect movie. And it reminded me, in terms of his oeuvre, it reminded me most of Four Rooms, which is the film with the 4 different directors making short films, and it culminates with his film, which is by far the best film. I mean, you've got Rodriguez's craziness in the episode before, which is fine, but it's sort of like all these episodes that you sort of need to get some of the context of the Bellboy, Tim Roth's Bellboy, to then go into the final chapter, which has this brilliant ending, which is very fast, very violent, and kind of caps the whole thing off, which is exactly what happened in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, yeah, disappointing, because it could have been my film of the year.
Yeah.
Right. Most anticipated. I may as well jump into this since I guess it's my turn to start a list. So I looked through flicks.co.nz at the upcoming films, and we sort of mentioned about Star Wars being the big tentpole film coming up in the summer. I'm not really that excited about Star Wars.
No.
I love Star Wars, and I don't know why I was talking to my workmate and friend, and was saying, why are we not excited about Star Wars?
This is because we're all Star Wars'd out.
Yeah. And we've been disappointed before, because the last couple of spin-offy ones weren't that great. So
yeah, I don't know. But my most anticipated film links to my wildcard film of last year, which is Jumanji, the next level.
Gosh.
Nice.
Which comes out on December the 26th,
You guys
I
are
believe.
adorable.
And I just loved that first film so much. I haven't actually watched it again since the cinema, but I have such fond memories. This new trailer has made me laugh so much watching it. And I can't wait to return to both the world of Jumanji and these characters and just see how they play. It might be terrible. It could be a total cash grab with all of the heart of the second film gone. But in terms of a film I'm actually going to go to the movies and watch, I mean, I'll go see Star Wars, don't get me wrong. But I'm actually looking forward to seeing Jumanji, the next level.
Cute.
It also has The Rock playing Danny DeVito, which is amazing.
Yeah. And who's Kevin Hart playing? Donald Glover?
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about Jack Black playing the African-American character and some of his vocal work. I'm like, oh, we shall see. Hopefully the off-cut scenes are the ones that are in the trailer, and they've managed to tone down some of the racial potholes that they could be stepping into. We shall see. We shall see. William, do you want to share with us your most anticipated film?
Yeah, of course. So this being recorded in November, my most anticipated movie actually comes out today on Netflix, which is very exciting. I was trying to watch it before this recording, just didn't have time. And it is something that's mostly going to be visual, I think, rather than, storytelling wise. But it is the movie Klaus. Have you guys seen the trailer for this thing?
No, but I've seen it reviewed as being absolutely amazing. Is it animated?
It's animated, yes.
Yeah, I've heard great things.
It looks like no animated movie that's ever been done before. It's hand-drawn with computer-assisted shading and texture, so much so that some people think it's actually CGI. But it's very much an extension or evolution of what the Disney Renaissance was back in the 90s. And so the director is Sergio Pablos. It's a Spanish movie. And he was someone who worked on character animation in Hunchback of Notre Dame. I think he was one of the lead animators on Judge Claude Frollo. He worked on Tarzan and Treasure Planet, so Disney old hand. And then he kind of hit the big time after 2D animation died and did Despicable Me. I think he's credited as one of the creators of that franchise. And this is a passion project, hand-drawn, about the origin story of Santa Claus.
In Spanish?
Oh, no, it's in English, and this is where my problems lie, because the trailers have all been really American.
Yes.
Because it looks like it should be a very European-type fairy tale. And you have Jason Schwartzman, who's great, but, hey, I'm wisecracky and whiny. And it has Rashida Jones as the main female character, and she's, I'm Rashida... No, that's not a Rashida Jones accent. Rashida Jones being Rashida Jones.
Yeah.
And it feels really, really off. But the visuals, it's really the next level of hand-drawn cinematic animation. I cannot wait for this movie.
Cool. Awesome. Sarah, what's your most anticipated film for the rest of the year?
My most anticipated film comes out in cinemas, I think, today, because we're going to see it tomorrow, because the director, Martin Scorsese, it's his birthday on Sunday, just like mine, except that Martin is turning, I think by my calculations, 77. And so his film, The Irishman, we're going to see it tomorrow in the cinema because, of course, it only has a limited cinema release for a week before it comes out on Netflix. But given that Uncle Marty and I are so bonded, we're going to pay good cinema money and go see it on the big screen.
Which cinema?
Well, actually, the Bridgeway in Northcote, so not that big of a screen, but a screen nonetheless. Anyway, it's 3.5 hours. And look, you know, as I say, I like to fancy myself as a bit of a cinephile, but if I'm at home over 3.5 hours, there are dishes that I can do. There's a cup of tea I can make. I can go to the loo and you know, really mess with a long cinema experience. Whereas if you chuck me in the darkened room of a cinema, I'm all good. So that's the way we're going to do it. I've heard funny things about the de-aging process of De Niro and Pacino and Pesci, I guess, is going to be de-aged. But whatever, bring it on. I've not read any substantive reviews, but I've sort of heard murmurs of greatness. And so it is absolutely my most anticipated film. And it's a little bit like me with Tarantino. I have probably 2 Scorsese films in my top 10, and I will love him forever. And, you know, he's done things like Wolf of Wall Street that I found a little more problematic. But I really want this to be good. I really need it to be good. And given that Heat, which as we know also was the first time that De Niro and Pacino were on screen together in a film, and that is in my top, actually, this is my top 2 films of my lifetime. So it's, you know, there's a lot wrapped up in The Irishman being really good.
Excellent. Well, Sarah, do you want to carry us on and talk about your wildcard film of the year?
Yeah. So this is pretty random. When we were in Cannes, we got to see Werner Herzog's new... It's kind of a drama. It's not one of his documentaries. But the weird thing is, Werner Herzog shot it, if you can call it photography, because it's like the most slapdash video you've ever seen, but it works. And it's very much in a documentary type style. And it's based on actually a factual situation, but it is ostensibly a drama. And it's called... Family Romance LLC, as in limited company. And it's definitely one of those films about which the less you know the better, but it's set in Japan, and he filmed it during cherry blossom season, so it's a gorgeous film to look at.
Wow.
And it's about a business where you can hire actors to play the roles of anybody that you need played in your life. And so there are people performing as fathers at weddings, people when the real father can't be there or is dead or is estranged or whatever, people pretending to be husbands and wives and all that sort of thing. And it's an absolutely fascinating film and very, very understated. And as I say, as far as cinema goes, there's not a lot to write home about, but it's got that Herzogian kind of charm. And not his voiceover or anything, but it's got his charm and his terrible photography. And and it's just like a mind-blowing kind of low-key film. Family Romance LLC. Have no idea if it's going to get proper release. I have no idea where one can find it, but this is the modern world, isn't it? So I'll leave that to the listener.
William, what's your wild card of 2019?
Okay, my wild card is a Chinese movie. Oftentimes Chinese movies, they fall into the category of wanting to be American movies so much. Especially 80s action movies. There's so many knockoffs. Or really, really culturally specific Chinese comedies, which are really impenetrable and it's all in jokes. The movie I'm thinking of is this movie called Crazy Alien, which came out this year. It was a pretty big hit in China. It was directed by Ning Hao, who has done quite a few of these comedies. I think this is the third in a trilogy of black comedies. But my best description of this would be if there was a Chinese version of the movie Paul. Do you guys remember Paul? With Simon Pegg and Nick Frost?
The Alien.
Yes.
The Alien Paul.
Kristen Wiig.
Yes.
It's a Paul Feig movie, isn't it?
So, yeah, it is. It feels kind of like Paul Feig, Edgar Wright thing. And in Crazy Alien, the premise is that an alien diplomat he tries to make contact with the Americans because of American buffoonery, because this is a satire. He crash lands into China and instead meets up with these 2 nobodies, these best friends / buffoons, one of whom is a monkey trainer at the local theme park. And so they think this is just a really mutated monkey and they start training it to do monkey tricks. which sounds ridiculous. It sounds very silly and very goofy. And it kind of devolves into this... It's a Chinese-French farce, if that makes any sense. Like, it feels very European. It doesn't feel American, even though the Americans are a large part of it. It's very much satire done in a way that is very, very smart. There's, of course, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, theme, except it's played on traditional Chinese instruments.
Nice.
There's stuff like an E.T. parody, except it's very, very, for lack of a better word, Chinese. Like, the entire iconography is Chinese. They bring in, the folklore of the Monkey King, local legend, local politics. The whole thing culminates in a big old piss take of alcoholism in China and the alcohol industry of all things. Like, on the one hand, it is very culturally specific. On the other hand, it does so in a way that feels respectful of where it's coming from and the story and the characters. And I found it to be extremely charming, really well done. The CGI is great. And just a all-round, good, weird comedy.
Is it accessible, though? You've talked about it being culturally specific and having in-jokes and Chinese legends and whatnot. So is it the sort of thing that a non-Chinese audience would get and enjoy, or not to the same extent?
I think they would enjoy it, because a lot of the gags with the Americans are very broad.
Yeah.
Again, feeling like something out of Asterix almost.
Right.
Yeah. But with the cultural signifiers, you do get a lot more out of the movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool. Crazy Alien.
Yeah.
Nice. So my wildcard film, I had to actually do a bit of research to find out whether this film came out this year, which is why it became my wildcard, really, because it came out on the 1st of January 2019. It's a film that I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did. It warmed my heart. It brought a song to my voice. I don't know what the metaphor is. And that is Mary Poppins Returns.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that film. And I was looking back through my reviews of the year, and I thought, yeah, that was a really good movie. I thought there was really strong performances. I loved the music. I guess that's always going to be subjective. And I thought they did a really wonderful job of paying homage to both, again, probably similar to Dr. Sleep, paying homage to the original film and also to the novel heritage of Mary Poppins, but also making its own thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree. I thought it was
you...
charming and fun and lovely and beautiful and great.
I really did not like that movie.
Yeah, I think we talked about this.
I felt like it was just a very, very pale carbon copy of the original. That kind of misses the point of the original. But that's.
I'm not even attached to the original, and yet both times I saw it twice. The Mary Poppins Returns, and both times she comes down through the clouds, I welled up with tears, and I hadn't been drinking. So something weird happened.
And I'm incredibly connected to the film and to the original, and I forgot that it was a big part of my childhood.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy.
Lovely.
So I think if you're a fan of the original film, check it out.
Nice.
And you'll either fall somewhere in the camp of William or myself. And if you've never seen Mary Poppins, well then, think about Sarah's response.
Yourself to see it. That's right.
Might well up with tears with no alcohol involved. All right, runners up. I might hand this over to you, William, to give us your runners up. Now, are you going to rank them, or is it all pretty much...
I can rank them.
Okay, because I'll give them points, and that'll determine our final film of the year.
Awesome. So I guess this would be my fourth, third, and second film. Fourth, aptly enough, is Toy Story 4. We've talked about it at length on our weird split continental podcast episode. That movie, I think it shouldn't work as well as it does, but it's heartfelt in a way that I just did not expect. And it's a beautiful epilogue. If this is, in fact, the end of Woody's story, for Woody's story.
I like epilogue as well. That's a nice way to frame Toy Story 4.
Plus, the movie is beautiful. That lighting, the rain. Oh, very, very nice. Probably one of the most beautiful movies of the year. Coming in at number 3. This is a tough watch. Viewer discretion required, I guess. But Jennifer Kent's The Nightingale. Holy moly.
What is it? Jennifer?
Oh, so The Nightingale.
Oh, The Nightingale. Oh, yes, sorry.
Jennifer Hooslam's...
Kent, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys like Babadook?
I never saw it.
I've never seen it.
It's too much for me.
Okay.
And I've heard The Nightingale is not... Is this the Australian one?
It is.
With the rape and things?
A lot, yes.
Yeah, no,
yes.
I don't need it.
So
I'm not dismissing your value of it. I'm just saying I don't need it in my face.
It's Tasmanian Gothic, basically a western set in Tasmania with a lot of cruelty, a lot of revenge. I mean, it's a revenge western is what it is. Featuring a Irish convict woman and her, I guess she hires an Aboriginal tracker to hunt down this British officer that did horrible things, or specifically English officer. And through the journey, they figure out that, what is the cost of vengeance and is it worth it? And the movie is really beautifully shot, really, really tense and terse and dark and foreboding, and the characters are great. It's just a tough watch. I think that's the big caveat. Like, it's very violent, grotesquely so in places, and it ends on a really mixed note. Like, you don't know if it's hopeful, if it's sad, but I think that's the beauty of it, which you bring a lot of yourself into the ending and how you decide to end the movie. And my number 2, and this is a really close number 1, I think this will show up on your guys' lists maybe, is Parasite. Because I think we all really enjoyed Parasite. We talked about it at length on the podcast, and it is a masterpiece. That's what I'll say about that.
Great.
Excellent. I might jump in with mine, and then I'm going to let you finish the runners-up after me, Sarah. So I said before we started this podcast, I haven't been that enamoured with the films this year, and I don't know whether that's because it's just the cinema landscape, or whether I just haven't been out as much.
It's not a great year.
It's not been a strong year, has it? And it's not. I think last year there were some really standouts, but whereas this year I feel like there's a lot of, Once Upon a Time in Hollywoods, and even Terminator 4, or Terminator 6 or whatever.
3.1.
Whatever it was. It was a great film, but it's like we've seen that 100 times. There's a lot of those sort of scenarios. And so I only had 2 runner-ups, but then I thought, well, there's actually a movie I watched this year that I started on Netflix. The day it came out, I just was tired. I ended up vegetating in front of the TV in front of this, loved every minute of it. And I guess it's continuing the theme of Jeremy's top films, including something to do with a major pop star. And that is the Beyonce film Homecoming, which is a filming of her Coachella 2018 performance, I think it was. And it's beautifully shot between her 2 weeks of that performance, where one night they were wearing yellow outfits and the next week they were wearing pink, so it's constantly changing between the clothes are changing, and interspersed is kind of her journey from having twins to sort of becoming show ready for that show. So yeah, a little bit of a left field. It almost was my wild card, and Mary Poppins was my number 3, but I actually feel like Mary Poppins felt more like a wild card. But yeah, so Homecoming is my number 4. 4. Number 2. Oh, sorry, gosh, the numbering is confusing me. My what am I saying? Second runner-up. Runner-up is Toy Story 4.
Oh, nice.
I agree with you, William. I thought that was a beautiful film. I didn't know I needed that movie. I didn't really want that movie, and yet, my gosh, what a special story. And like I said, epilogue is a nice way to look at it, because I do feel like Toy Story 3 was the definitive end of the collective's story. Buzz is kind of an afterthought in Toy Story 4. Most of the other toys are. This is Woody's story.
I've not seen it yet.
It's wonderful. Yeah. And it's really interesting. And we talked about this in our cross-continental strange patch-up of an episode. The first 2 Toy Stories, the first Toy Story was revolutionary and the second one's a brilliant sequel. But there's still very much that kind of family fare. You get to the 3rd film and it's dealing with some really deep themes. Yeah. And the 4th one just takes that and flies with it even further. Wow. And both 3 and 4, just the maturity of literally about maturity and old age and kind of different stages of life. It's wonderful storytelling. And my number 2 film, my first runner-up is what I've mentioned already, is Midsommar. I saw that at the cinema not knowing how long it was, so be warned, Sarah, it's 2.5 hours long, or almost 3 hours long if you watch this new director's cut that's come out.
Oh, wow.
It's a long film, and it's R18, and I didn't know either thing going into the movie.
Oh, wow.
Went with a friend of mine, and I was completely captured for the whole movie. I got 2 hours into the film, and I'm thinking, flippin' heck, how long is this movie?
Yeah,
and it's still
going.
I still knew it had like a decent chunk to go, just based on the way the rhythm of the film was working. But no, absolutely loved it. I agree with you. I laughed. I watched parts through my fingers. I was completely taken up by the story. Some could argue that it's pretty predictable and we've kind of seen it before, which I think in terms of the surface story, absolutely. But like I mentioned cryptically before, the emotional thread, the theme, the character story there is something quite unique, and I found it quite exciting.
Just one more thing about Midsommar. The camera is like magic. It is gliding and floating and swiveling in ways that is not physically possible. And amazing stuff.
And just kind of on that note, there's a comment in the film about the bugs. Oh, there's bugs everywhere. And apparently, when you go to places in Sweden, there are bugs everywhere. Like if you lie in the grass, you get bugs on you. I don't know if that's true. So if anyone's listening to this and that's a total load of BS, please let us know. But somebody told me who I would trust would know that to be true. So yeah, fun fact.
Cool.
Sarah, what are your runners-up for 2019?
Right. Well, my fourth film, so my third runner-up, I saw at Cannes. It's a French film called Les Miserables, and it was also in the New Zealand Film Festival. It's everything we've seen before, but still done incredibly excitingly. It is not Les Miserables, the musical. It is not anything to do with Jean Valjean or anything like that. However, it is about the poor and the working class and the the immigrant communities living in the banlieue, the outer suburbs of Paris. And basically, it's your good old, I love this stuff. It's basically, you've got your crooked cops, you've got your criminal gangs, of course, and some of them are sympathetic and some aren't. And you've got your immigrant children, and you've got this community, and it's heating up during literally one of the hottest summers of the hottest times of the year. Crime happens. Terrible things happen, great things happen. It's incredibly exciting. There is an amazing centerpiece, and it was absolutely thrilling. And I can't wait to see it again as soon as I can. So that's my fourth film. My third film, we'll bring it home just for a little bit, i.e. I saw this at home, but it is an American film. And actually, I'm going with Joker. Todd Phillips' Joker, which I sort of mentioned in a previous podcast, could have gone either way for me, and I was a little bit worried. And I thought it was a stunning film. I thought Joaquin was stunning. I thought something that is very, very important to me is that the way that mental illness is handled is well, I'd love to say destigmatizing. Let's be honest, there is nothing destigmatizing about it whatsoever in the film. But at the very least, it's being an origin story of somebody who is known to be chaotic and crazy, and unpredictable and mentally ill. I thought the way they treated mental illness was very, very thoughtful, insightful, and for me, credible. And I thought it was a stunning film, and I thought about it heaps afterwards, which I think is a sign of how compelling a film is. So it didn't quite make it to my best film of the year, and there's no reason why it should, but it's definitely up there.
Brilliant.
My second film, so my first runner-up, was much more obscure. And I saw it at Cannes, and I have to be really careful because I do think sometimes when you see an amazing film in an environment like that, sometimes you can feel that it was better than it might have been if you'd seen it in a different context. But I feel pretty secure that Bacurau, which is, holy mackerel, I'm pretty sure it's Brazilian. Okay, well, say somewhere in South America, and I'm fairly sure it's Brazil. Oh my gosh. So neither of you have seen it, eh?
No.
Oh my gosh. And very few people listening will have seen it. I cannot implore you enough to take a chance on this film. You just have to trust me, because it is literally one of those films you really can't say very much about. If I told you that basically it's the story of a village community and a young woman who returns to the community to see her family, and then strange things happen as the village starts to realize that it is disappearing from maps, that's as much as I can tell you, because then shit gets crazy.
And you talked about this in our episode when we talked about our films from abroad, and it's intriguing. I need to see it.
Amazing. And we went in knowing absolutely nothing.
Oh, boy.
And it's amazing. But it is the sort of film I don't want to spoiler anything, but it goes places you never would have imagined, and it goes dark. And it was absolutely thrilling. So Bacurau is absolutely a big yes. Go for it. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, well, we've come to our films of the year. Dun, dun, dun. Who would like to jump in and reveal their film first?
Well, mine's already been mentioned, so there isn't a lot to say about it other than to say Bong Joon-ho's Parasite has to be my film of the year. It is absolutely flawless in terms of script, story, characterization, acting, the composition of every single shot, the production design, the themes, the nuance, and the brutality. It is an extraordinary piece of filmmaking.
I'm going to jump in there and say it's my film of the year as well.
Wow, there you go. And it was
I'm
Williams
so
number
sorry.
two.
So close.
Williams
so
number
close.
two.
And
Would
I
have been
just,
unanimous.
Yeah.
and it would have been a first. It would have been a
Yes.
first. But I think when I think back on this year, it's the only film that has truly excited me in a way that you want a film to. It's the reason why we watch movies. And
Yes.
I watched it at home. I watched a version of it at home. It wasn't available at any of the cinemas at the time. I tried to get to the cinemas to see it. And I've told the story before, but I had my flatmate's friend was staying with us. My flatmate was out. This friend was just sort of mooching around, and I said, "Look, do you want to come and watch this Korean film with me? I think it's going to be a pretty creepy thriller." And she's like, "Yeah, sure." And her and I were just glued to the screen.
Yeah.
And the first half is wonderfully comedic and just this farce almost, not even a farce, like this building up of kind of the joke. It's like a joke building.
Yeah.
And then you get to that point in the middle of the movie where you know something's got to change because we've still got half the film to go.
Yeah.
And it does so in a way that is thrilling and terrifying. And anytime somebody has to make a meal under duress is going to stress me out.
Yeah.
While watching a YouTube tutorial.
But equally, it isn't too ridiculous. And I think we've talked about again this in the Snowpiercer. Did we do an episode on Parasite?
Yeah.
we did.
Versus
Didn't we?
Snowpiercer, yeah.
Yes, we've talked about this movie, of
Yeah.
course, which is probably why I
Well,
watched
what
it.
a wonderful plug to listeners who might want to go back a couple of episodes and listen to our Parasite episode.
But don't listen to it before watching Parasite. There's some
no.
wonderful surprises. And I thought, my gosh, that is one of the most exciting experiences I've had watching a film in a long time. And like I said in that podcast, it's everything that I wanted Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to be and wasn't.
Yeah.
So, bravo, Parasite. I'm absolutely confident in giving it my Film of the Year status. And I don't think it will be dethroned by Jumanji Part 3, Next Level. But we shall see.
Try
we
us,
shall
William.
see.
What's your film of the year?
Oh my gosh. Alrighty. So,
War of the Planet of the Apes 5.
it was Jumanji Part 3, unfortunately.
Is it really?
No. The movie hasn't even come out. So I really struggled with this one because I think Parasite it's a better movie on almost all fronts.
Sure.
But my number one pick of film of 2019 was the movie where my friends and I went to see it. It was a late night showing, and collectively we were just blown away. Like we ended up being in the car, kind of trying to talk about it, but not really being able to. I know, Sarah, you've watched this film, and we may have differing views on this, but it is Apollo 11.
Oh!
Yeah, so
Lord.
it's a documentary, Todd Douglas Miller.
Yeah.
So basically, it's funny because last episode we were talking about, Hitler and Inglourious Bastards and Jojo Rabbit, and how you kind of expect historical events to be portrayed in a certain way in film. And we all know that in the summer of 1969, the US had a leg up in the space race by launching Apollo 11, the Saturn V rocket, and successfully landing Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon ahead of the Soviets. And that being said, the story and the footage of what it takes to get there, I know my friends and I, we were all literally sitting on the edge of our seats. Maybe because this was also an IMAX screen and we had to sit there to see the image. But just, I don't think any movie I've seen in my life has given the snapshot in history of the excitement of being at a point in human history where everyone understands that after this point, the world is forever changed.
Yes, that's a lovely point.
Yeah, because so much of the footage, there was a lot of footage that was recently released, right? It had been in secret government archives, and it was 70mm, which is amazing to look at. And most of this footage is the crowd, right? The Americans, like happy women, men, children dressed up in their Sunday finest in camper vans with all their video cameras set up with cameras and just wanting to be part of history and the excitement and the buzz in the air. And this is even before, ignition starts. And then of course, once ignition starts, the footage you see of the spacecraft and the chatter between the crew of the craft and ground control and the people, basically performing super heroics using trigonometry. They had no calculators. It was rows and rows of human computers with pen and pad paper. And the incredible things they could do with math and science, pure math, pure science, and accomplish these feats. Remarkable and ought to be captured in a way that was cogent, that was exciting, and that was thrilling, even though this event happened, in literally 50 years ago. I thought it was by far the best time I had at the movies this year.
Wonderful.
You make such an interesting point about how contemporary the film is. Because we've seen Apollo 13 and other films, and we've seen people land on the moon. And even if we've seen historical things told now, there's always that element of foreknowledge or backwards knowledge, or however you want to put it, that you're making the film now but you're pretending it was about then, whereas what you've just described is really meaningful because it is literally looking at those people as they were then and experiencing the awe and delight and excitement that they had. Not actors acting like they're in awe with excitement and delight, and that's really compelling. And you're so right also that for a moment there, because I have seen it and it was great, I wasn't bowled over, but it was great. You do sort of think, oh my gosh, are they going to make it? And it's like, wait, they are, because that's why we're here. But watching it.
There's a scene with the lander and they're verbally counting down the amount of fuel they have in the lander, and they just make it on the moon with something like 2 seconds left, and you're like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Wow, good call.
Excellent. I need to see this film because I've heard, not just from you, but one of my very best friends had the same reaction. Yeah. Just completely enraptured and captured.
Yeah, enraptured, yeah.
In whatever. Just into this movie. Fantastic. And look, wrapping up our conversation today, our clear collective... and I see the lowest common denominator at the start of this podcast.
This is the Palme d'Or winning, top film of Cannes on its premiere. Solid as Korean director who knows what the heck he's doing.
And I think it's definitely the biggest consensus we've had, even if it's maybe 1 point off. With Williams, but I mean, you still had it as your number 2 film. So Parasite is our film of the year.
Yeah.
And I think what a wonderful film of the year, sort of.
Thematically very, very appropriate to our times.
True. So, there you have it. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoyed our podcast, then please share it with your film-loving friends. You can listen to Cinema in Context through SoundCloud, Stitcher, Radio Public, and Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode, or give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, which will be the new year, January 2020. And until then, ka kite ano.